This episode, we got something cool going on here, so yeah, check this out. Hey folks, welcome back to another vlog. Ryan Wilson here from Predator Inc. And today I've got a special vlog. I got this call from Matt August, good friend of mine up in British Columbia. He owns August Motor Cars, has a tremendous amount of high-end vehicles up there. If you guys are looking for some cool vehicles, he's got some lines on really high-end exotics. Contacted me and said, hey Ryan, I got this crazy idea. I've got this 2020 G-Wagon, brand new. What do you think about squaring it? And I was like, yeah, I think we could do that. We've got a vehicle that's been virtually unchanged for decades.
How does this vehicle, a boxy, tall, large SUV with utilitarian capabilities, garner so much popularity? What makes the vehicle truly special isn't that it's considered a symbol of success, but it's that the model is kept true to its core, keeping its utilitarian functions through time. Throughout every upgrade and new model it releases, the G-Wagon is much more than a swanky ride to the supermarket.
So sitting behind me is a 2020 G-Wagon squared. It has a very similar look to the older G-Wagon. Put the two of them side by side, and I've got an older 2016 or 17 G-Wagon. It is considerably smaller than the 2020 that's behind me. Back in 2015, they came out with the 4x4 squared. You guys know us from the Hummer market. This vehicle is very similar to the H1 Hummer because it has the same military background, military lineage. With the G squared, it's got portal axles on there, which is something that's very unique to the H1 Hummer. Imagine a box, it has an input on the top side that comes out of the engine transmission to the transfer case. It sends the drive shafts forward and reverse. And then from the differential, it goes into an input into this geared hub. Then the output is much lower, and that's what gives it its ground clearance, which makes it a phenomenal off-road vehicle. It's just amazing to see the engineers and the guys here working through all the problems that occurred over the course of about a year. There is a square kit out there for the older trucks, very simple to do. It's more or less bolt on. It works out very well. However, those trucks don't have all of the technology that this truck has. I mean, if you've been in the new 2020 G-Wagons, it's amazing. You go around a corner and the seat adjusts for you, and actually side bolsters kick in and kind of hold you upright as you go into that corner. So it's a pretty complicated vehicle. Unfortunately, we started it at the beginning of a pandemic. Everything was shut down. I was able to find a couple components out of Germany, some OEM parts. Germany went into full-blown lockdown when this happened. We had a guy drive them across the border, air freighted to us, did a bunch of research on it, got my engineer involved, got the parts in from Germany that we needed. We needed a bunch of wheel speed sensors to different gears, got all that stuff coming in. And that's the beginning of the can of worms that was opened up on this vehicle when it came to all the programming that was involved, accessing all the Mercedes computers. The Germans don't like us touching computer systems. It took a tremendous amount of work to get into those, to work with them, to make sure that they're programmed correctly with all the changes that we did to it. This is probably one of the most complicated builds that we've ever done when it comes to the electronics that went into this system and working with the Mercedes programming. There's literally dozens of computers that control each wheel speed sensor, backup sensors, distance sensors, the Distronic system, all of the stuff had to run seamlessly with the obvious conversion to the squared kit. Getting that system to work correctly with the squared kit that we installed was an undertaking. I mentioned wheel speed sensors. That was just a nightmare to do because you're taking this vehicle that was never designed to be squared, lifting it up in the air with portal axles, and you're taking that center of gravity way up here, virtually another foot higher, and all the sensors are reading incorrect signals from what they should be or what they're looking for. The vehicle thinks it's going into this death roll and airbags could potentially be deployed. So working through that was a huge undertaking by our team here. So this is where the portal axle or the geared hub is going to go. It has you can see the drive shaft over here, or half shaft. This half shaft comes into the top of the portal axle, and then the whole portal axle actually drops down here, and the output is down in this location here. When we come up to the front of the truck, you're gonna have a tremendous amount of more ground clearance, obviously, and we're gonna go with larger size tires, but it's also gonna stance this thing out about 4 to 5 inches on each side. It's gonna be a lot wider, also a lot taller, and it's gonna rival this beast right here, the exoskeleton truck. When you walk up to a G² truck, they're massive. I mean, their top of the roof line is up here, so it's gonna be very comparable as far as the appearance that the G-Wagon's gonna have alongside this truck here.
What we're doing here is putting in new springs, adjustable coil springs on this G-Wagon. Already got those installed, and then now we're starting the process of installing the portals. You got the first plate for the portal bolted up. You got the rest of it. It's a 3-piece or multiple pieces, but pretty much 3-piece. You got to get the gears all separated, torn apart, so you could assemble it on the vehicle itself.
Oh wow! So you have to disassemble it to fully get it installed.
To assemble the whole thing together there.
Gotcha.
Because you got bolts going both directions.
We've got one of the rears installed, so where do we stand right now?
Pretty much beginning to disassemble this side, the right rear. This is pretty much where you got to start at. And you pop the axle out and remove that axle. On the rear, you got to disassemble the factory stuff, the factory bearings, and then press it all together to be able to install the whole thing as a one unit.
All right, so let's go on the other side. I want to show you this geared hub that's been installed. So, start right there, take a look at this. You've got the axle that comes in here, and then the output coming in, or coming out over here. So you can see that drop. Again, it's massive, but also you have these helical cut gears in here. There's 3 helical cut gears. What that means is, instead of straight gears, hey Flo, do you have any straight gears or helical gears over there? Let me see if we got some I can show you. All right, so check this out. These are called helical cut gears. So it has a little radius to it almost. You can see that angle to the gear. What that does is it actually runs a lot quieter than a straight cut gear. When you have a straight cut gear, if these gears were straight across, here, turn it sideways, camera. If they were straight across, it actually create like a hum as they mesh together, especially at highway speeds, because these things are gonna be turning pretty fast. So the helical ones actually kind of mesh together like that, or like that. But a lot quieter, great way to go. Little history on the H1 Hummers, they're all straight cut gears until 2006, and they came out with helical cut gears, which is really nice, and they came out with the Duramax on the 2006 Alpha. Those helical cut gears did quiet it down a little bit. It's not like it's the end of the world if you have straight cut gears. I really don't notice it too much, but it is a little bit louder. And so if you have straight cut gears, that you don't need to swap out for helical cut gears. It's not.
I doubt that you could hear it over, some 40-inch tires either.
Exactly. You're running 40s on there, or even 38s.
If you can hear this, you got other problems.
It was definitely difficult. We invested a tremendous amount of money into this vehicle, a tremendous amount of time in developing the system. It's here and we couldn't be prouder. So they came out with it as a special vehicle, kind of to wrap up the final production years of the original G-Wagon. Then they released the 2019 G-Wagon, which was completely redesigned, completely different, very complicated vehicle. It's not like the old G-Wagons. So we've got the G² up in the air, and what we're looking at besides this massive rotor and caliper here is this portal axle right here. So this guy, this massive block of billet aluminum here, houses a couple gears inside here. And so what you have is you have an input into the backside of this portal axle at about this level. Now that would be your stock ride height for a normal G-Wagon. The wheel would sit up here more with the center line of the wheel right about here, and it goes into this portal axle and goes through the gears and pops out down here roughly about 7 inches lower than the stock format. So you're getting an extra 7 inches of ride height just from the portal axle. It also offsets it out about 8 inches or so. So you're getting almost 16 inches more width out of the truck because you've got 8 inches on each side that is giving a more stance look to the truck. But then also the roughly 7 inches down, and then we're going to 35. So that gives you another probably 3 inches over stock. We did all the programming, so everything runs seamless. One of the other big hurdles that we came into was the rim and tire combination, because we really wanted to retain that original G² look and feel. Original one came with roughly 35s on there. We needed the same to have the correct stance. Custom rims manufactured in-house. We went with 20s, and then we went with the Toyo Open Country RT tires, which gives it that true G-Wagon, G² appearance to it. As I mentioned, the stance here, you're talking about 6 inches farther out. So that's huge. So that means is we've got this massive tire and wheel combo that's gonna go that's gonna be installed here. And the stance is going to be wider, giving you more stability. Also, another couple inches of ground clearance out of this truck as well. And then something else we're going to have to contend with is the Fender Flares. The factory Fender Flares are just not wide enough for rims and tires that are sticking way out here. So we've got new carbon fiber Fender Flares that are going to be installed that are very similar to this, but much wider. They're going to come out another almost 4 or 5 inches or so, which is going to look like the 2016 G². However, this thing's going to be a 2020, so completely new body style, much increased drivability, on-road, off-road. It's just a lot more comfortable vehicle. Getting into what we did here was a tremendous amount of rework on the whole cooling system on the front end. So the older 2018, 17, 16, and so on G-Wagons, they didn't have the amount of coolers that this thing has. This thing has, I think it's like 7 coolers on the front. Some of them are like cross-linked together. So we had to re-engineer all of that without losing cooling capacity first and foremost, also making it more efficient by having some of the coolers with a little bit larger capacity to it in a different location. So we re-engineered the location, changing the angle of it, pushed it forward more. It's truly like a custom application because we have these tires that are so massive. And really, once we push that tire out, the swing radius on this 35-inch tire as it swings around, it would be ripping the whole cooling stack out. So we had to re-engineer all the cooling on this truck. So I wanted to give it more of a streetable tire, although I know a lot of you are gonna see these tires and go, oh yeah, those are mud trains. And they pretty much are. They're kind of dancing around on that fine line of an all-terrain, mud terrain, very streetable tire. I've been running these for years on my truck, and I love them as an everyday vehicle. And then when I do need them in heavy off-road situations, they're there for me. Great wheel and tire package, and just a truck that we can be very proud of. Finally finished it off with tuned suspension coilovers up here, dialing the suspension, but that's really only half of it. The rest of it comes into all the programming that goes into the suspension system. And just putting it in perspective, I'm almost 6 foot. It's just a beast to get into. This thing's massive going on the road. It gets a ton of looks, and the people that know the G-Wagon and the G² see this thing, and it's literally a double take because they see it and they're like, oh wow. And then there's a second like reaction, which is, wait a minute, because they've never seen a 2020 squared. It is absolutely an amazing vehicle to drive. It's got a tremendous amount of power, but more so than that, it still retains the factory ride. Although it is a little bit firmer, we stiffened up the suspension just a little bit because of obviously the added height. We don't want to have this vehicle swing around up in the air like it could if it was too soft. So very, very firm, very responsive, very quick. This thing is just a beast on the road. And it's like everywhere you look, people are just staring at you with this thing. I mean, it's just a monster, especially with how it shifts. And in the dynamic setting, it's very, very throaty, but very quick shift responses too. And let me roll down these windows for you. Oh, that's a seat cover. Seat cover came loose from the back seat. Oh my gosh, this thing is just nuts. It's so much fun. It's on par with an H1 Hummer as far as just driving and pure excitement. Yeah, that's all I got. It's so much fun to drive.